And we are live. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another installment of the live Gutenberg Q&A sessions. We missed last time because of the weather that the East Coast has been getting slammed with. I lost power about 3 or 4 hours before the broadcast. About an hour before the broadcast, Zac messaged me and said, I also lost power. So
that is right.
Yeah,
the great northeast winds we had.
I know. So I'm happy to report that we are back. I'm at home rocking and rolling with power. I have resolved my audio and my internet issues, so we are good to go. It looks like Zac and Robby are both reporting remotely. Are you guys going to WordCamp Miami?
That is correct. Yeah, I've been in Miami for the last couple days. It's pretty nice down here.
Oh man, I made an amateur move, Robby. I should have come to your place. I'm still in the airport. I just landed in Miami, so
yeah, if I'd known, you would have been more than welcome. Although it's a little, I don't have a desk at this spot, so I'm trying to hide that I'm just sitting on the bed right now. But I'm sitting on the bed.
Awesome. I unfortunately, well, I shouldn't say unfortunately, I can't make it to WordCamp Miami because I am officiating a wedding this weekend. So it was very important for me to be there as I'm performing the ceremony. I'm performing the nuptials. So I, alas, could not make it to WordCamp Miami. I'll get there one of these years. It's always like my wedding is happening or a wedding is happening or I have like a 2-week-old. But to anybody who is going to WordCamp Miami, safe travels, enjoy. And I know that I know Zac and a bunch of other awesome people are working on a Gutenberg workshop, right? Zac, you want to maybe kick off by talking about that?
yeah. So they're gonna do an all-day workshop on. I think they're calling it the future of WordPress because what we're gonna start seeing, and we've talked in it a little bit, but really there's a huge number of people using WordPress. They have no idea what's coming. So even calling it a Gutenberg workshop, they didn't feel comfortable with. But yeah, it's going to be great. A few of us, Josh Pollock, Brian Richards, and Greg from the Automatic Core development team is going to be there. So we're doing an all-day thing that should be a lot of fun. And then WordCamp Miami also is known for having its all-day JavaScript track. So workshops on Friday. On Sunday, they're going to have a full day of talks on JavaScript from the basics up to React and all that other stuff. So pretty cool. Should be a good event and one to make in the future. Although, you know, love, life, family, these things are important too.
Yeah,
absolutely.
More. And Robby, I know that David Bissett reached out to you. Are you doing Gutenberg related stuff at Miami as well?
No, to be honest, I'm just coming. We sponsored.
Nice.
So I'm coming out as a sponsor and just to attend. One of the folks we work with is out here in the Florida area. So she's coming down tomorrow and we're going to meet in person for the first time, which is always exciting. We've been working with each other for, I think, going on 2 years now, and wow. I've never met face to face. So that'll be fun. And
awesome.
I'm just along for the ride.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, it's always a great ride. I already have FOMO. And like the event hasn't even started yet because I know like Lemma and a bunch of people will be there. I know Cigar Camp Miami is happening, and that's always one of my favorite WordPress adjacent or WordCamp adjacent events. But you guys have a great time. But so before we dive into it, I want to thank our sponsor, Give. They are making this, so we owe one more, right? We wanted to get 6 in before Miami, but because of the power issues, we do owe one more. But they made this series possible. So thanks so much to them. Check them out at givewp.com. We've raved and ranted about them on this enough that I think you guys know who they are. They're very supportive of the community. I'm sure somebody from Give will be at Miami as well. It's one of the biggest WordCamps in the United States. So definitely go check them out at givewp.com. You can also see their forum in action over at Gutenberg.courses/ask-us. So if you want to see how their donation modules work, or their donation plugin works, you can go test it out by giving a little donation to the live Q&A cause. So definitely check out GiveWP. Thanks so much to them for sponsoring. So, for those of you who don't know Robby, I did a poor job of introducing you. Robby McCullough is one of the founders of Beaver Builder, a very popular WordPress page builder plugin, and creator of my favorite, most comfortable shirt. Um, so we got him on this episode, I guess, of the live Q&A because we've been getting a lot of questions about page builders. Beaver Builder is one of the most popular ones out there, and so I'm certain that his insight will be fantastic. So we'll just kick off things by mentioning that in my course, I updated my course a little bit. I added 3 videos. I'm adding 3 more this week. Now that 2.4 dropped yesterday, so I'm updating a couple of videos. And one of the videos was actually testing Beaver Builder with Gutenberg. So you can grab the course if you want to see kind of the full video of how that worked. But I was very happy with the way things turned out. Right, with the classic editor, you go to the classic editor and you see a little button that says, "Yo, this page is using the page builder. Click here to go to the page builder interface," which is very much a WYSIWYG editor. It's exactly how it looks like on the front end. With Gutenberg, you don't see that, but you also don't accidentally mess anything up, right? The thing with the classic editor is that if you make changes in the classic editor, your page builder content is affected, right? With Gutenberg, what happens is you make changes, you click save the page, and Beaver Builder says, "Yo, pump the brakes. This is using the page builder, so Gutenberg, don't add any of your stuff in here. We're just gonna revert back to our content." So that's really nice. Nobody can accidentally break a Beaver Builder page with Gutenberg enabled. I was really happy to see that. I think that's really the right way to go. For now, I don't know what your plans are for the future. I should, because you've written a lot about it, right, Robby? That's I know you guys have been writing and testing, and so do you want to provide any thoughts based on that?
Yeah, sure. Well, hey, thanks for the intro. I was going to mention I love the shirt. Looks good.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been an interesting kind of process that we've been going through this whole. I mean, it's been going on a year and a half now, going on about a year and a half of trying to understand in the beginning what the Gutenberg project was going to look like and how it was going to potentially impact Beaver Builder and page builders and affect it, and then from there how we could embrace it, extend it, make sure it doesn't conflict with people that have built their sites on Beaver Builder. And so yeah, it's funny, we had all these huge ideas, and then we've kind of like whittled them down to the point where we're at now, where we just put out a alpha version that I assume you're using to do that course and for testing, but that has our Gutenberg compatibility built in. And it's as simple right now as just having a way to switch seamlessly between the 2 editors. Currently, Gutenberg is an alternate to the default editing experience on WordPress, which is very similar to Beaver Builder. We've always been an alternate to the editor, but once it goes into core and becomes the default, that's when things could get a little bit tricky or hairy. So
I'm really glad that you mentioned that you have an alpha for Gutenberg, because I did not use that in my video. I just said, well, Gutenberg's enabled, Beaver Builder's enabled. Let's just see what happens. And nothing breaks. So even better. Like, if you just are using everything out of the box, no alphas or anything right now, rest assured that your content will not get broken if you're using Beaver Builder, specifically with Gutenberg. And it's even better news that you guys have something to work with Gutenberg. Very cool.
You know what? You're right. I'm sorry. I take that back. I think we took that chunk of the code and put it into
Awesome.
a core update. Yeah, because it was
Awesome.
It was in 2.1, but we decided not to wait until we released the big major release to get that functionality in there.
Cool. Well, I'm glad to hear that, because I'm like, man, I'm supposed to be on top of Gutenberg and Beaver Builder, and I missed an alpha.
I was impressed. So this is kind of a tangent, but on a side note, I don't know if you guys have heard or anyone's been familiar, but Facebook has been changing their content algorithm. So it's prioritizing posts from friends and family over brands and news, which I think is a good move on Facebook's side, but it's been impacting us a little bit because we use Facebook, and particularly our Facebook group, as one of our main channels for communicating with our community. And we released that alpha version as a Facebook post, and it didn't get as much traction as it would have in the past. So we haven't had as many people testing it, which is, it's interesting. Again, I think it's good for Facebook, but we're kind of, trying to figure out new ways to get people to be trying out, because it's really important for us to get those alphas out early and get the user feedback and test for conflicts.
Yeah, that is really interesting, because I did notice a drop in. I mean, I was annoyed one day because, like, I think 80% of my timeline was pages I was a part of. But since they made that change, you're right. I haven't seen as much, specifically Beaver Builder, or I think I'm in like a growth hacking group. I haven't really seen much content there. So as a user, I should be mindful to go to the Beaver Builder page more often. But yeah, it's tough when you're distributing on someone else's platform.
Hey, folks, I'd love to jump in with a question here. I'm curious about, first, I just want to confirm, because we get asked a lot, like, what's going to happen to our site if I have Beaver Builder and I update to Gutenberg? And the short answer is that Joe's confirmed, and you're talking about like alpha releases and working on this, like, it's not going to break. It's going to keep working, right? And traditionally in Beaver Builder, you see an option, hey, open up the Beaver Builder editor, or toggle that off, I guess, and go back to the default experience. So in Gutenberg now, you still have to have that kind of switch option. And I'm just curious, we covered at a user level, you should be fine and you could still have those two environments. But how did you tackle that from a technical level? Because all the hooks change, the whole page changes, where you put your buttons change, right? Like from the classical editor to this one. So I'm just curious, for folks who are also maybe doing things that have to kick out of the editor, what was y'all's thought process around that? How'd you implement it? Sorry if the noise is loud. Hopefully you can still hear me okay.
No worries. It's the way of the road. Actually, I was going to apologize too. I'm like staying by this super busy intersection, and the folks out here are not shy to use their horn, I have found. So, car horns in the background. Yeah, that was an interesting process. So as it exists in default WordPress, there's a little tab module that comes up above the editor that's basically a custom piece of code we were able to inject into the page editing screen. Like, it wasn't a meta box, and it wasn't part of the tiny MCE editor. It was our own kind of thing. And it's interesting, like, when you talk and hear about Gutenberg, that phrase, everything is a block, keeps coming up and keeps getting kind of driven in. Everything's a block. So when we were exploring how to recreate that in Gutenberg, we eventually landed on it needs to be a block. And it felt kind of counterintuitive at first. Like, in the beginning, I was envisioning or thinking of blocks just as content and not necessarily as a block of functionality, but that's what it ended up being. So the Beaver Builder block will come in, and it will be sitting there on the, in Gutenberg along with your other blocks if you have them on the page. But yeah, it's as simple as just having a block in there that lets you toggle between the two editing experiences. And in doing so, I know that our development team has been doing a real deep dive into React and into building on Gutenberg, and that was kind of a fun excuse, or it really forced us to jump into that with 2 feet and learn how to make that work.
Nice.
Well, let me ask this follow-up, if it's all right. So we know that, and first of all, that's really cool, and I like that approach. Right before, you can just hook in and add your own code to pop out, and now you're using a block within blocks to control the context. And you're right, like, they are just kind of content, but they could do so much, and we could do a lot with them. So that's pretty interesting. I'm curious, now that the team's building into blocks, and I know this is a maybe way down the future question, but has the team been looking at like duplicating some Beaver Builder blocks within Gutenberg, or is it still at the point where you could just do so much more and such a richer editing experience within Beaver Builder by itself that Gutenberg is almost detracting from that where it is now? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, totally. It does. That was kind of part of the exploration, and when we had the big ideas before we actually jumped into the code and kind of determined what was going to be realistic and possible in terms of actually executing. We had all these ideas of like, oh, if everything's a block, imagine if we can bring blocks into Beaver Builder, or vice versa. You know, what is that going to look like, that relationship? So what we've found is that working with blocks outside of Gutenberg, I mean, blocks and Gutenberg are very closely married. Like the idea of having blocks available in Beaver Builder, I don't think is a reality yet. But we have been able to bring Beaver Builder content into Gutenberg and go the reverse direction. So if you've built out like a section of a page, maybe like a call to action that you use in a couple different places on your website, and you have it as either like a template in Beaver Builder or a saved row, we have a proof of concept where you can put that into a Gutenberg page. We got a couple proofs of concept, like ideas that have gone through our Slack, and then I don't think any of them are in the alpha in this space, but we've been able to bring whole Beaver Builder pages into Gutenberg and leverage the inline editing and some of the functionality of Gutenberg to tweak your Beaver Builder pages. And one of the really exciting things that we think is possible there is something that comes up a lot with our users and our customers, is that they're building websites for clients, and they want to have a limited editing experience for their clients. They don't want their clients to be able to get in and ruin the designs that they've spent all this time perfecting and crafting with their years of experience and talent. And you get the guy that comes in and bumps the font weight up to 1,000 and like screws up the line spacing, and just so there might be some opportunities there to have a limited editing experience in Gutenberg, or those are kind of still just daydream ideas, but that's kind of the direction we've been playing around in that space.
So that's really interesting. Just one last follow-up, Joe. I'm going to let you take back over control, man. But Robby, while I have you, you're not the only page builder out there, right? And so you're probably not the only one solving this problem. You're also probably not the only plugin developer that's thinking, do we continue down the approach we've had, or do we go down this other approach? How do you balance internally in your company figuring out like how much time goes to prototyping and playing around? Because that could become a rabbit hole of learning React and like block development and all these other things so quickly, right? So I'm curious, has there been some structure to that, or have you found kind of boundaries for that you might be able to recommend to others? I know it's probably a little loose, but hopefully you understand what I'm asking, right?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and it is something that we've talked about, and I don't want to say struggled with, but that we are trying to be aware of in approaching this. Specifically to the point of learning React and kind of stepping up our game when it comes to JavaScript and front end and modern JavaScript libraries and such. That's been really useful because we've started building more of Beaver Builder in React. And over the last couple of years, really, we've been slowly moving things from the PHP and running in the back end to the front end.
Very cool.
Yeah, we did a big major UI refresh, and on the front there was a big design change. It looked different, but in the back end we brought a lot of functionality over to the front end, so we didn't have to make as many Ajax calls. We were able to increase the performance in Beaver Builder a lot, and so it's kind of like the side project idea too. Like I'm a big fan of CSS Tricks and Chris Coyer and those guys, and one of the questions they'd always get is like, how do I learn web design? And the recommendation is always to just build something, like take something you're passionate about and build it and learn on the job in that sense. So even if some of these proofs of concept or some of the experimental stuff we've been doing in the Gutenberg space doesn't actually make it into the product, it's still been really valuable as an exercise and a learning approach. But then the other side of that, of course, too, is like I'm optimistic about Gutenberg and we want it to be successful, but there is that concern that, how much is Gutenberg, especially as the core team moves it towards site customization and design, how much is that going to kind of encroach on what we're doing? And, if someone's using Beaver Builder, like, are they not going to need Beaver Builder for these certain types of pages or these certain types of functions? And So we've also been kind of trying to balance that and explore other ways that we can complement Gutenberg, and trying to, that's been the really tricky part, is like all the unknowns too, right? Like the uncertainty of trying to guess where they're going so that we can anticipate and be there and still be able to provide value. But it's been a really interesting year. It's been a challenge, but it's been exciting. There's a lot going on.
Well, that's cool. Hopefully that's helpful for folks trying to find their own way in this approach. And as you know, we're big fans of what you're doing, and it sounds like you're taking all the right steps. I mean, you're in a funny position that I heard you say, not maybe exactly this, but similar, like you're ahead of WordPress. So you're watching to see like how does core catch up to doing a solution that you implemented in part because it didn't exist, right? So it'll be a funny road, but it sounds like getting your stuff in React now, moving more stuff to the client, understanding blocks. These are all things that people can begin doing in their own projects, right?
Sure, definitely.
Very cool. That's all really awesome to hear. I'm now excited to see kind of some of the stuff you talked about get implemented, because Gutenberg, when it launches with 5.0, it's going to be very nice, a very different editor experience, but it's not quite what you see is what you get yet, right? Or definitely not to the point that definitely not to the point that Beaver Builder is. So being able to maybe build sections of your page in Beaver Builder while still using the native editor sounds like a very interesting approach to me, especially, Robby, like what you said, for freelancers who are concerned about their clients breaking the site. So awesome. Well, that is great. What a great introduction to this Q&A session. But let's get into some questions. And another very common question we get about another plugin is ACF. And so Zac and I talked about possibly having somebody from the ACF team on. Zac, I know you reached out. Do you want to let them know kind of what the response is and the best thing for users to do if they want to stay on top of ACF?
Yeah, totally. In fact, I think it's probably fine for me to just copy and paste this into the live chat, right? We're good on that?
Yeah, okay. I think so.
So basically, I did a very poor example of reaching out because I don't know if I know anybody at ACF. So what I did was I opened a support ticket and asked them, hey, my buddy Joe and I are doing this Q&A. We'd love to, actually, I can't post links, so let me post this up in a second here. Or maybe, Joe, can you look through there? You have access to it. Take out the links and then post that in.
Totally.
For some reason. Can't do that. But basically, I asked them, hey, I know you've written some articles about this, and we would just love to get you on the show and have you. And we got kind of a formulaic response back from their support team saying, hey, we're currently working on a new JS library for the ACF plugin. Stay tuned for updates and beta versions. They mentioned a compatibility article post that they wrote on the Advanced Custom Field blog for their ACF Year in Review 2017. And then they point us to their Twitter account and their blog. So it was like a very formulaic, like very acceptable, totally get it response. But who knows somebody at ACF so we could get them on the show and hear even more. But I don't know what we could glean from this, honestly, that we didn't already know, because we referenced those links before. Thanks, Joe, for throwing that up in the chat for everybody. Definitely check out that post that they have, and they talk about it. But like we've said, and I don't think I heard anything in this that contradicts it, although it doesn't really confirm either, they're working on it, and hopefully it should work. Again, the goal of Gutenberg is like everything will just not break, right? So it sounds like it's going in that direction. We've talked in the past about how you can build blocks that automatically transition content that used to be one way into a new way. But there are some kind of issues, right? You're absolutely going to need to update your template code. No matter what ACF does, they can't replace the field calls with the content calls. So you're going to have to do something. But we still got to wait to hear. We don't have any big updates. But thanks, Joe, for plugging that, because that is something we said we'd try to reach out, and hopefully, it's a little bit helpful. But we'll stay posted on ACF, because I think now that we've got Beaver Builder solved and on the show, that's the other major one we've got, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the big thing there, just to I'm out of focus. The big thing there is to just keep if you're interested in a specific plugin, make sure to follow that plugin on Twitter, on Facebook, on their blog, because they'll have the most recent news before any of us do. You know, they're not like leaking press releases to us first. So
Yeah, that's a good example of we don't always have any more of an insider path than you do, and I took an approach anybody else could have with ACF to get that information. Yeah.
Those guys have an interesting and a lot more challenging problem to solve than we do. I think just thinking about, you know, being that Beaver Builder lives separately from the editor. I know Metabox and Metabox support was one of the really like dramatic and a lot of people were really unsure what that was going to look like. And it was one of the pieces of Gutenberg as Gutenberg kind of evolved and was released that wasn't very well oiled or honed in. Which I know the core team has been making a lot of improvements there on how to handle metadata, but I almost feel like the ACF team, I couldn't imagine being like, they kind of had to wait and see to a much higher degree than we did and kind of depend on what Gutenberg and how Gutenberg was going to support meta fields before they could get in and get their hands dirty trying to adapt.
Yeah, Robby, do you want to take a stab at that? What's your thoughts? I mean, obviously, you know what ACF is, right? You know kind of how it works. You know what might change with Gutenberg. How do you see that unfolding? Some potentialities there.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a tough. It's such a tough problem. I mean, if I had like a simple solution, right, it wouldn't. I wish I had an answer to that one. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the best, it's one of those things too, where I think if, I mean, okay, well, so one of the things I think is really interesting. So Matt Mullenweg mentioned that Gutenberg was going to reach a mass audience in April, right? And I think it was kind of assumed or understood or implied that he was going to be rolling it out on WordPress.com and in Calypso. And in that environment, they're able to do a limited rollout. So they can roll it out to 1,000 customers or 10,000 customers and then kind of see what happens, judge reactions, fix things if they break. And doing that slow rollout really helps for those kind of problems. Because it's very much a user-facing problem. And everyone uses ACF kind of in different ways too. Like it's so flexible. There's so many things you can do with it. It would be really hard for any one person to build an optimal solution for all those use cases. Like you almost need to be able to get it in front of people and let it break and then fix it a few times and iterate, which again, yeah, I imagine the ACF team hasn't really had the opportunity to do outside of, you know, limited like testing with their user base, or it's got to be a lot more difficult for them, both relying on Gutenberg and following those changes and not being able to get quite as hands-on as the core team is going to have the opportunity to do with the WordPress.com rollout.
Robby, what's your take on how on the approach of, hey, I'm just going to keep the classic editor and all my old plugins the same for a while and let this ship ride out? What are your thoughts on someone taking that approach?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was in a conversation with some folks in the hosting space, and there was one point where someone mentioned we're just gonna block Gutenberg from our install. This is like a pretty major like web host too. I don't want to name any names, but they're like, yeah, we're just not gonna have it. And I think the conversation has evolved a lot from then. I mean, that's been one of the really interesting things over the last year and a half, is watching how the community has reacted and their opinions on what that's going to look. I think a lot of people just assumed like, yeah, we'll just exit. We're not going to use it. We're just going to live on. And you know, there was even talk of WordPress forking and having the classic WordPress and the Gutenberg WordPress, which I mean, still, I don't think that ship has been sunk or sailed, or I don't know what the proper like analogy is for that.
I'm not sure the status of that ship either.
Yeah.
I mean,
cool.
yeah, people were very reactionary, but now that we're actually seeing, you know, we're seeing the chains get moved, I think it's people have backed off of the more extreme approaches, I think. So,
and a lot of that is due to the great work that the Gutenberg team has done. I mean, it really has matured into you know, and this is something you'd almost feel in the crowd at WordCamp US, that people were going from like anxiety and fear to kind of like oohing and awing and going like, oh, I want that. It kind of had the shiny ball syndrome, where at one point it was this, you know, scary unknown monster in the dark, to going like, oh, like I like this, I like that. And, you know, like the more I get and use it, I feel the same way. You know, I was like, I want to use this. So
yeah, absolutely. And on that same token, actually, we got a timely question from David Bell about this. I've been following the Beaver Builder and Gutenberg since the beginning. I am still confused. If I have Beaver Builder, is there any reason that I should use Gutenberg?
Hey, Dave. Dave's been a long time user and fan. We got to meet in Philadelphia. Good to see you. Thank you. Yeah, I think that I mean, the classic use case is blog posts. I mean, at least right now, it's the easiest to kind of envision, as Gutenberg is strictly taking over the editor. But like on my website, I'm going to use Beaver Builder for my homepage, or if I want to do a landing page or a newsletter sign up page, anywhere where I'm building a page. It's going to be Beaver Builder, but then I'm totally going to start writing my blog posts in Gutenberg. I think the editing experience is beautiful. And then I may style them or build my theme templates with Beaver Themer. A little shameless plug there. Hey. But yeah, no, I think at least as it exists right now, Gutenberg's going to be a great editor for text content, and we'll see what it evolves into when they start tackling site design or site customization and design.
Wow, that's such a good response, because it's not an all or nothing thing, right? You could still build some content in Gutenberg and pop open Page Builder, Beaver Builder for other content. The other thing I want to separate is, like, you're still going to want to update WordPress. Like, there's going to be security patches. There's all sorts of things besides Gutenberg. So let's, I get the heart of the question, but let's try to be clear when we talk about, like, should I just be disabling Gutenberg and using the classic editor versus just like, should I just stop updating WordPress, which is absolutely not. But the classic editor may be a good
yeah,
that's a good one.
Right. And there are definitely some real concerns, right, with people who are using customized versions of the editor page. But if you're, you know, if your biggest plugin is Beaver Builder, I honestly don't think that you should use the classic editor, because like Robby said, Beaver Builder allows you to build these amazing eye-catching pages. I've done a few for, like, catsabona.org is run the same way, right? My homepage, my about page, my hire me page. But when I blog, that's not you know, I'm not using the page builder for that, and using Gutenberg will allow me to do some pretty nifty things, you know, have a nice looking gallery or multiple columns, or throw in related posts like right in the middle of my blog post without a separate premium plugin. So lots of very, very cool use cases to have both. So thanks Robby for that answer. It was fantastic.
Yeah, thanks Dave for the question too.
Yeah, Dave, thank you for the question. Robby's being a better host than I am.
No, he's just my online buddy.
Nice. Cool. So we've addressed that question for Beaver Builder. We've addressed a question about ACF. Here's kind of a softball, I think, for me and Zac. Dan asked, are there demo videos of the courses that I can see before purchasing? Zac just updated his page with demo videos. I don't have any demo videos yet, except for the introduction. And that's because as of like earlier this week, my course was like 10 videos. So, you know, I feel like I'm giving away a lot. However, that said, I do have a couple of testing videos that I'm going to put out to give you kind of a feel for the course, because I know that's important, right? You don't just want to shell out $40 if it's like not what you want. Totally understand that. So demo videos are coming for me. Zac, I believe you've released a couple of demo videos for yours, right? Cool.
I have, yeah, released a couple ones, and I believe also, I don't want to put you on the spot here, but I know at least with my course, I have a refund policy. So if you get it and it's not what you're looking for, then, you know, I'm not going to sweat you there. I've had one or two people get in and they're like, holy shoot, I need to actually go learn JavaScript first. So I'll be back, but could I have my money back? And, you know, no problem there. So
yeah, that's a good point. I have my refund policy is stated as no refunds, but I'm not like a complete inflexible person. If you like take the first lesson, you're like, this is not for me, this is too basic, I'll totally refund your course. The only reason I have it stated a certain way is I've had people like take the whole course and then say I want my money back, and that's kind of like going to a restaurant and having like a 5-course meal and then saying I didn't like any of it. But if the course is not for you, totally reach out. So
but
cool.
Get the courses, they're good, y'all. We love what we're doing,
and
it's gonna be worth it. So.
Right, and we're updating them regularly. I've rolled out this is like week 2 of me updating the course, and I'm trying to update as quickly as Gutenberg changes the UI. But it's pretty difficult to do, but I'm trying to keep on top of that. I know Zach is doing the same.
Joe, this might be a good question for you then. One of the things we also get asked is what's changed or what's been updated, right? Gutenberg's on a 2-week release cycle. Sometimes it comes out a Friday, sometimes a Monday or Tuesday the following week, but we just had another one, and you mentioned a few important things out there, so I just wanted to make sure that we highlighted that for folks.
Yeah, that's a great question, man. I probably should have kept those update notes up on my screen. But yeah, so 2.2.4 dropped about 24 hours ago. And the biggest change to the UI I noticed is, and they actually state this, is the position of the plus button. So since my course came out, this has gone through a couple of iterations, right? So the thing I'm doing for my course is I'm having like the first like prerequisite video is UI changes that have happened in Gutenberg but haven't made it into the rest of the videos yet, so that at least you know where to look. I'm going to say click here, but you're going to want to look over here instead. But the biggest change is placing the add button kind of like in the margin on the left. It makes it a little more prominent, which is really nice. And then the 3 right aligned icons are your most recently used or frequently used blocks. There has been a slight change to the columns or nested blocks UI as well. It looks nicer. I did find a bug that I reported to the Gutenberg team. When you're using 3 columns, I haven't tested more than that. 2 columns, everything works fine. 3 columns, there's a small bug, but they did make some improvements on that. Added a little bit more room and things a bit clearer. But that's the major UI change. And I'll bring up the notes here. Zach, I don't know if you're familiar with any of the development changes. I know you mentioned one to me.
Yeah, so a lot of it at this point is refinements, right? We talked in the past about that huge list of feature sets left, and there really aren't too many like features for Gutenberg rollout. Once we have nested blocks and some state management, we're getting that 90 percentile completion. So a lot of the things you're going to see are like refinements on focus and refinements on like keyboard interactions and some of the like trickier, more nuanced stuff. I'm looking through this list here. Again, it's in the chat notes, so check it out. But yeah, not anything super major. There's some fixes, but there was also some breaking changes. So they've been maintaining compatibility within their own app of changes they make. And some of those are not going to keep going forward. So I'm finally at the point where I'm updating my course once I get back from WordCamp Miami. Total rewrite, everything getting redone, because there's enough of changes that like you said, if you take the course now, you'll see a few notes here and there of like, hey, changes to that and it'll work. But I think, my friend, that we're getting pretty close to revisions, right? Like we're getting down to the end. Oh, the last thing I want to point out, this is a pretty big one, is they are improving a lot of the build tool setup. So in the past, you had to set up Webpack and your Babel file and all that pretty robustly. And now there's all these scripts that WordPress has. So you could just run like npm install this and that, and your configuration files went from being like this to just like this. So there's even less code you need now, and I'm really excited about that. So that's a really cool change. That'll be reflected. But I think a lot of the changes now are like pretty deep. You shouldn't need to be breaking or fixing too much. They're more like improving the app and the UI itself rather than being like, oh, this should work this way instead, right? And I also want to kick it over to Robby. I don't know, Robby, how close you or your team have followed the Gutenberg changes, but if there's anything in the last couple of weeks that you've noticed that is worth throwing out there for folks who might not have a magnifying glass on all the threads, right?
Yeah. Well, that's been one of the like, well, I got a couple things to kudos to you guys for keeping up with it all. What I was jumping into saying is that there's been so much communication on so many different channels. And Zac, you did the Gutenberg event, and I found it really, really helpful. It was all about how you have been managing that and following that and some tips and tricks. I thought that was really, really impressive. But and circling back to the question about your guys' courses, like you guys both do such a good job at educating. I'm in awe. So I highly recommend both of these guys and their courses because they're so good and they're obviously so passionate, and keeping them up to date is such a challenge. I like we were talking about this a little bit off the air. Like it's I feel like you'll bump into these things that you'll see and like, how did I not know this? But it's kind of understandable with the water hose of information that comes through every single day that you gotta follow with. The one thing that I did see recently that I'd love to plug too is Mel Choice did a speech or a talk at LoopConf, and it just went up on YouTube at the beginning of the month, where she shows some kind of very, very early conceptual ideas and mock-ups of where she wants to take Gutenberg when they start getting into customization and site customization and design. And I thought that was fascinating. And particularly for us, that's one of the things we're really curious about and trying to keep a finger on the pulse of. So if you haven't seen her presentation there, that's a really, really interesting one to kind of get a glimpse into the future of where Gutenberg's going.
Oh, that's cool. I love Mel's talks, man. If you haven't seen him, I'm pulling it up now and I'm gonna put it in the link. So great addition there, my friend.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. So Zac, I think you're absolutely right. We're getting to the home stretch. There was one more thing I saw in the notes that I want to point out because I want everybody to know that the Gutenberg team is paying attention to all of the feedback that's coming in. Between 2.3 and 2.4, I believe the move, like if you converted a classic editor post to a Gutenberg post, the more dotted line edition like just jumped all the way to the bottom and you had to drag it back up. They have fixed that. So they're keen on making sure that this is a good experience. The other thing I'm going to throw in the show notes, I guess, is somebody recently did a usability test with Dragon Speech, and there was some interesting feedback there that I believe got in front of the Gutenberg team. So just accessibility stuff to be aware of. They are certainly aware of it and working towards that. Again, there's a lot of moving parts, but it was a very interesting video because it's not something a lot of people probably think about, writing a blog post completely via speech to text.
I saw a dev recently, and his name is escaping me, sorry, but he talked about how he's blogging more because he's doing it all through text, right? So to be able to text transcript something into a blog post and then go back and make it GB pretty, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. Awesome. So we have a couple more questions here as we're coming up on, man, this hour went pretty fast. We got a question from we got a question from Peter. How best to prepare to get 5.0 with Gutenberg to play nice with complex sites that might have Give, WooCommerce, ACF, custom post types, and more. I think we've touched on this a bit. I know the WooCommerce team has a beta Gutenberg extension that you can go ahead and test with. It's relatively simple right now, but I know that they they have their weekly dev huddles and they'll have the Gutenberg is a topic because they want to make sure that it works on 5.0. So again, the best thing you can do is...
You guys seen this Trello board, the Gutenberg integration on WooCommerce platform roadmap on Trello? I'm going to throw this up here.
No, throw that in the notes. That's a good resource. See, so finding those resources, staying on top of them, and testing. Not to plug my course again, but another module that I just added that I'm pretty happy about. I'm really glad I added this one. Was I took Casabona.org, which has 15 years of content or more, and I converted it. I made it a staging site, so I show how to do that, and then I enable Gutenberg and I run some tests on it. So I kind of include a test plan. I would encourage everybody to do that. Create a staging site or a local site and enable Gutenberg and just test and see what happens. If something's like totally broken, like if Give, that's a bad example. If WooCommerce is totally broken,
Don't
you
throw
know,
the sponsor under the bus.
I know, seriously. And also, I should say that
Give is just going to work. It's already going to be TV compatible.
Right.
We had them confirmed.
Yeah, right. We've tested that. So that's why that was a bad example.
Get rid of WooCommerce, run all your transactions through Give. You're going to be happy for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Should be fine.
Yeah, totally. That'll be fine. If something is totally broken, see if they have a beta or an alpha that works with Gutenberg. And if not, reach out to the developer and say like, hey, I just wanted to see if there's any news or updates and things like that. And of course, we'll try to keep you guys as updated as possible. And then there's the Gutenberg Times. That's Birgit's. That's Birgit's, right? Or is it Gutenberg News? I always mess them up. I'm so sorry, Birgit. I know you're here.
Hi, Birgit.
Yeah, so there's great people doing great work to keep us updated with Gutenberg News is really what I'm driving at.
Joe, I know you have another question. I got to throw this out too because I've been tracking the Gutenberg theme as well. So I just threw that link up in there. If you don't know about it, I think in large part Tammy has been leading this up, but basically the idea is build a theme that will allow all capabilities of Gutenberg, and it's a really simple basic theme. It's based off of Underscore, and they actually just kind of came to a point where they decided originally they were styling all block styles specifically, and they switched to this whitelist approach. If you've gotten into Gutenberg or into our courses, you know that you have to enable the ability to have like full width and wide width things that are bigger than your content. So figuring out the CSS solution for that, how to make everything narrow while these can be wider and this and that, like it's a little tricky, and they just came up with a good CSS solution. So I'd suggest you go ahead and check that out and check out the styles and the functions.php and see how it's all architected. Not that you need to use that theme, but I definitely check it out. And I guess we're kind of guesstimating that this is going to be 2019, or maybe I just am, something along those lines, right? That would probably make sense. We've never had a starter theme as a default theme, but might be. Not since Kubrick.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a good point. That's a question that we get pretty frequently too, right? Is, will there be a Gutenberg ready theme? It would behoove it would behoove the WordPress open source team to roll out a Gutenberg compatible theme. I think it would be I don't think it would be very good for them. I don't think they think it would be very good either if they rolled out without a new theme. Like if they're just like 2017 is still the theme, because you're not taking advantage of all of the new features. So,
although I think they did say that theme doesn't get shipped until like post customizer or something. I don't know.
Really?
About that.
I think
Robby, with you have Beaver builder specific themes. Are you having to think about accommodating this full width and wide width kind of thing, and where like making it fully Beaver builder compatible, but also ready for GB?
Yeah, on the theming point, we are also kind of like anxiously anticipating what the core team is going to do in themes. And I do agree. I think it's up to them to kind of set the stage and the direction that they want people to follow. Because in Gutenberg, this idea that even though Gutenberg exists in the back end, that, they're trying to bring the back end and the front end and like close that gap. And that's the responsibility of the theme and the styling. So I think it's going to be extremely important for both Automatic and then just the WordPress community in general to start updating and releasing Gutenberg themes that bring that front end experience or the front end style to the back end. So when you're working in Gutenberg, you are getting more of a what you see is what you get approach. Specifically for our theme, we are in a little bit of a holding pattern. for our product line, we've got the page builder and the theme, and the theme's always been a little bit more difficult to update and change, particularly when it comes to CSS, because most people are using a child theme and they've built styles on top of ours. For one example, like we're using Bootstrap 3, and after, like, it feels like my entire life that Bootstrap 4 has been in beta. They finally just released it. So we've been like kind of exploring what that might look like. But, you know, do we want to update or try to update or fork our theme or release a new theme? But then also, right, with the changes and the advancements in front end and browser technology, CSS Grid and Flexbox, like, do you even need a Bootstrap anymore? Or what does the theme represent? And I think we're kind of approaching this new paradigm or a new, you know, generation of front end design that is still kind of being, like, kinks are being worked out of. But when you throw Gutenberg in there, like, there's a lot of potential for change and new best practices and new approaches that are going to be way better than what we've done before. But I think we're just kind of on the cusp of figuring that out.
Oh man, I hope everybody appreciated Robby's answers like I did. That was that was good, my friend. Good, good.
Very nice.
That was rambling to try and avoid answering that. Like, I don't know. We'll see. The future will be great.
Awesome. Well, I think that perfectly segues into our last two questions. They are both from Zoe, right? So Zoe asked us that she uses a theme that already has a layout builder in it called WP Jumpstart by Theme Boulevard. And she's wondering if and how Gutenberg's built-in layout builder will affect such a theme. She also asked a follow-up question about the difference between Gutenberg and Beaver Builder, which we've kind of addressed. And then she said, do I need Beaver Builder? And so I'm going to say, yes, you need Beaver Builder. No, I'm just kidding. I love Beaver Builder. If you are using,
yeah, you do. Go buy it now. Stop
get it
what
now.
You're doing. Get that company reimbursement.
Right.
Go get it.
I think that, so my answer will be a fairly diplomatic one, hopefully. You know, you are using a page builder, Zoe, that is built into the theme, married to the theme. So at present, no, I don't think you need another page builder. However, if you ever decide you want to change your theme, you're going to lose that page builder functionality, right? Which is generally why I recommend Beaver Builder. Is they don't marry themselves to a theme. They don't marry themselves to the content like some other page builders that rely heavily on shortcodes, right? So the really nice thing about Beaver Builder is that you can swap out your theme. You can disable Beaver Builder and you'll still have your content. You won't just be left with a bunch of shortcodes or anything like that. So while we touched on the difference between Gutenberg and Beaver Builder, which is Beaver Builder makes page layouts and Gutenberg at present allows you to do some more advanced stuff within your blog content, Beaver Builder and WP Jumpstart, it sounds like they would conflict a little bit, or at least they would they do the same thing. You know, it would be like adding an engine, I guess, to the back of your car when you already have one on the front of your car. You know, so that would be my answer to your question. And I think Zac probably has a I think Zac reached out to Theme Boulevard. Is that right?
Yeah, I was on reaching out with GB questions tips, in part just because we encourage people to like reach out to plugin and theme developers, right? So I'm like, well, let me try it and see how it goes. And we got a great response. I won't paste this whole thing in there, but I really want to give a shout out to I don't have his name up here, but the dev behind Theme Boulevard took some time to give a really good response. And I won't read or paste all of it here, but basically there's kind of with this particular theme builder, and here's the thing, folks, like you might not have made a conscious decision to have a theme builder. You might have just bought a theme that has a theme builder baked in, and now you're wondering, what do I do, right? And so this one is one where you choose a page template, which honestly, page templates weren't a feature in Gutenberg until the last version. Now it is, so we could have that. But in the past, you would choose a certain page template, and then the interface would kind of change, and you could do different things there. And actually, if anybody remembers Make Theme Foundry, I think I was a big fan of that theme. It had a baked-in kind of interface where if you chose, rather than clicking Edit in Beaver Builder where it opens in a new tab, which I believe is still correct, right, Robby?
Yep.
Yep. You would select a page template, and then it would change that interface there. And he explains that there's probably going to have to be a change in this approach where you're going to get kicked out of the editor and following more of that Beaver Builder approach. And I think that this would make sense, Robby, right? If a page builder is doing something that used to be in the main admin area, but now they're trying to do more than is possible, it would make sense that they kick you out of that, right, into a different environment, and then you can do your full editing experience there. So it sounds like he's going in that direction. I just want to get your take on your thoughts on that kind of approach.
Yeah, I think I mean, maybe another option would be to do or leverage Gutenberg and work within Gutenberg, but I would imagine at this point that would be the easier route to take, is to kick out. One thing I was thinking too, just in when you guys were answering that question, is you'll always be able to install the classic editor plugin on a WordPress site. Like, you don't have to update or move if you're concerned that this site that you invested in, whether it be time or money, and that you built with a particular software stack. I mean, that's kind of the beauty of WordPress, right? Is like, I've seen, when we were doing client work, I've seen some really, really ancient WordPress sites, like running ancient software and themes and plugins, and they still work just fine. Like, you might have to do a little tweaking, and maybe fix a few things after an update, but you think you can be pretty confident that you're not going to have to start all over from scratch. And especially if you have a site and you have your images and your copywriting all done, even if you wanted to switch over to another solution, be it a page builder or be it Gutenberg, usually the most time consuming part of that kind of process of building a site is writing the copy and coming up with the imagery and the design. And these new generation of page building tools, Gutenberg included, makes the process of going from that idea to a WordPress page really simple. So not to worry.
Awesome. Yeah, that's fantastic. Zoe just kind of follow up. Beaver Builder is like a modular layout builder. I think that's maybe a good way to put it, because you have modules. That's the same nomenclature that you use, right? So yeah, my big piece of advice for using Beaver Builder is also something that kind of harkens to choosing a good Gutenberg theme, right? Which is, you want something that will take advantage of the fact that you can create multi-column layouts, right? So Beaver Builder allows you to have, like, make a page with a sidebar, which is not something the current WordPress editor lets you do. So you want to have a full page width. You want a theme that takes advantage of that, and the Beaver Builder theme does that very well.
Oh my God, I'm buying beaverthemer.com right now.
The Beaver the Astra theme does that very well. So you want to find, the kind of right tools there. So, man, we're right at the end here. Thanks to everybody who attended. Thanks to our sponsor, Give, for making these live Q&A sessions possible. We don't have. Oh man, I'm sorry. I need to adjust. I'm gonna stop my ending right here, because Zoe asked an excellent question. When we say Gutenberg, do we really mean WordPress Core 5.0? Yes. Gutenberg is like the code name for the project. What Gutenberg really is the new WordPress editor. So when 5.0 comes out, we should cease to use the term Gutenberg when referring to the new editor. It'll probably move on to something else, but yeah, Gutenberg is really the new WordPress editor. Man, great question to end on. So thanks again to Give for sponsoring these, making these possible. We don't have any more on the schedule, but we will. First of all, we need to make up the one with the folks from Human Made.
I'm very excited to have the Human Made folks back on our thing.
Yeah, they just relaunched, I think, TechCrunch. They just redesigned TechCrunch, so they're doing big work, and having them on will be excellent insight. And then, we want to continue doing these Q&As until 5.0 comes out. So hopefully, as our schedules allow.
We also want to super thank Robby, not just for coming on the show, but thanks for coming on the show. If you haven't checked out gutentag.events, I put the link in there. Go listen to Robby talk in that. They had a panel where they pulled him in as well. Some of the same stuff, but honestly, some stuff that we didn't get into here. So I want to make sure folks go out and hear that. Go buy Beaver Builder, make it your default page layout builder. And yes, there's still a use for it outside of Gutenberg and along with it. So super shout out there, man. So happy that you could come on. And I think people have asked us every time, right? What about Beaver Builder? What about Beaver Builder? So to go right to the source has been great.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just to echo what Zac said, thanks so much for taking the time. Taking time away from beautiful Miami. It's freezing here in the Northeast. So though you came from California, so it's probably nice out there too. We never end the show this way, but people can find me and Zac over at Gutenberg.courses. Check out our courses on Gutenberg.courses/ask us. You can sign up for the mailing list to get the new set of dates when they're coming out. You'll also get a reminder 3 days before the event to say, hey, just a reminder. Our times are listed in Eastern Standard Time, but we're going to fix that. We are now in Eastern Daylight Time. Daylight Savings Time happened here in the United States. Time zones are confusing. And you can find Robby over at WPBeaverBuilder.com. Check them out. So much good stuff happening in the WordPress community. So thanks to everybody
Joe,
for watching.
Before we sign off, man, is it too early to mention something in relation to theming and you and I? I
mean, if we say it, we have to do it. So maybe we should just say it.
I think you should just say it, man.
I'm excited. I want to hear it.
Yeah. Well, Zac, this was your brainchild, so you let it go. Let it rock.
Okay, so I'll throw it out there. As you know, if you've been to Gutenberg.courses, you've seen Joe's course for users and you've seen mine for development. And the one part we're missing is for themers. So Joe and I are actually going to team up and knock out a course together over the next couple weeks, built specifically for theme developers. So we're going to get into some of the sketch assets that were created, working with the Gutenberg starter theme, converting one of your themes over to be Gutenberg ready. And it's just going to be this narrow focus that kind of includes a teeny bit from one course and a teeny bit from the other, but it's really its own trajectory. So I am really happy about this because we're going to have such a good gambit of content available for people. And I think we'll price it probably somewhere between the full development one and somewhere between the other one. We talked about writing a book, but we're like, who reads books anymore these days?
Video
we're just going to do another course, and we're kind of beginning that process now. So I wanted to get out there and share that because I'm very excited about it. And it's our first collaborative course together, so that'll be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, that's another reason to sign up for the mailing list over at Gutenberg.courses/ask us, is we'll keep you up to date there too. So, fantastic. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. Thanks, Robby. Thanks, Zac. Signing off. Until next time.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, y'all.